Good afternoon, everyone. You're watching the latest episode of Lightning Leadership, hosted today by Huron Consulting. I am super excited to welcome my three guests. I get to hang out with three of the smartest people I know today, and I couldn't be more proud. So, Greg, Lewis, Alex, welcome to Lightning Leadership.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So, we're getting ready to kick off a roadshow on AI over ERP in multiple cities across the country. And so let's talk about the efficiencies that you can gain by having AI over your ERP. And what might you need help with?
Yeah, it's interesting to start that off. First, a lot of people who are on a legacy ERP and on-prem, even back in the AS400, think that they have to go to some of the latest cloud to get AI capabilities, which isn't true. You can use a hyperscaler, a Microsoft, a Google, and Oracle to get AI capabilities today. But it's really interesting that companies have a lot of data in their systems, whether it's procurement data, HR data, supply chain data, but they don't really have the time or the ability to see the insights into it, to be told what to do, where to look at, and what to work on. And you can start getting that capability right away.
So it doesn't matter which ERP you're using, you're able to pull the data as long as you have
it as long as you have it. Go ahead, Lewis.
Yeah. Look, I think that everyone we talk, or many people always think, well, my data is just not good enough, right? I've tried to do this analytics, I try to do certain things, I just can't get the insights I need to get out of it. And in many cases, traditional technologies, that's true, but you have to think about it differently with AI, right? Especially generative AI. It's really good at contextualizing data that is a little more messy, has gaps in it, and things like that. So you can use generative AI to clean up your data and then use machine learning to enable a use case. So my point to customers is this: let's figure out how to get value from the data you have as you work towards getting the data you need, right? And so that stuff can pay for itself. So I wouldn't be hesitant because, hey, I haven't been able to do certain things in the past. Machine learning, for example, does need very clean, correct data to work, right? Generative AI can deal with a lot of messiness. So don't let that discourage you. Focus on some use cases that may make the most sense for the data you have, and then work your way towards the data you need over time.
Yeah, I always tell all the teams I'm working with, you're sitting on this massive pool of potential energy, right? All of this data lives in your ERP and your CRM and your MES system. And old school mentality would be we have to rip and replace out the hardware, right? You got this pool of oil we have to put in a faster drilling machine. It's a layered approach, right? How do we refine what we have? We've got all this potential energy, and how do we turn it into kinetic energy? And Teresa, you said this best. You're going to get faster speed to value, right? It's going to take years to replace some of these transactional systems. ERPs, these systems are really great about telling you what has happened in the past and what is happening now. But most of them, they're starting to get towards predictive, or as Luis said, machine learning models. But really, that layered approach is where you're going to own your data. You're going to own the stack, and you're going to be able to adapt and create solutions for your own organization much faster than being kind of in a vendor locked in SaaS constrained environment.
Yeah, those are good points. You brought up another example, or another thought in my head is like, anybody who has an ERP right now can use AI to essentially create a simulation engine using that ERP data, right? A form of digital twin. I can take all my cost centers, all my work centers, my routers, or bill of material, and say, what happens to my plant if this cost center or work center goes down? What happens to my cost if my labor for this cost center goes up $2 or $3? So you can take existing ERP data. You don't have to connect to it directly. Just do a snapshot, and then use AI to change some of those data elements to create disruption scenarios and help you understand what's a real impact to my plant. So that's anyone who has an ERP system can do that today. There's no reason why you can't. You have the data.
It unlocks a wealth of optionality, right? Like exactly. You're able to use it however you would like it instead of being locked in.
Right, exactly.
And the use cases are as abundant as the different types of businesses out there. Distributors who can load up their data and look at adjacent products that they should be selling to their customers, looking at your pricing, looking at your costs, looking at your employee data to figure out how you should better train or help them.
Right.
You could find all kinds of things where if you had the time and you had an Excel spreadsheet, you could spend a week or two to look at it all. You could mine amazing things. But AI, these platforms can help you do this very quickly where you didn't have the time to do it before. So then you can start moving to the action phase and improving your business today. And these projects are measured in weeks, months, or quarters, not years. Swapping out your ERP system you could potentially 2, even a 3-year activity, very high risk, versus you can start taking advantage of the information you have this quarter and start making decisions. And it'd be interesting you guys have experienced this, because what I'm seeing is there's an exponential curve to this, a flywheel effect, where when you start learning more and you're using your data through AI, you come up with even more and better questions and different ways you can use it. And you have to start. It's not like there's an endpoint to this. It's a journey.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. The what I hear all the time from people who have been successful in rolling out to the company, in their company, AI in their company, is that they tried a bunch of training, some adoption and knowledge capture happened, but it was kind of mediocre. The second they let people loose the tools, and in a structured, controlled way, so they have access to only certain data sets, the exponential curve that Greg mentioned kind of took off, right? So you learn by doing. There's very little substitute for that in this technology, especially since the technology itself is moving so quickly that the material you're using to train people are probably going to be out to date in 2 or 3 weeks anyway, right? So using the technology allows you to essentially use technology to teach you the technology, right? That's the power of AI. You can just ask it a question. If you're stuck someplace, ask the same tool you're trying to use for solving a problem. How do I get out of this situation I'm in, and go through that process?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And 2 points, at least when I'm out there talking to organizations. One is every company I talk to, their best, their brightest, often their most expensive people, they're just pulling reports, right? They're pulling down all of this data right now. They're living in spreadsheets. And I mean, come on, it's like, let the machines do that, right? And let the people make the judgment calls. And then over time, for the safer options, the more structured, linear options, AI can start, poking around to that judgment world. But this whole everybody's pulling down data, everyone's living in the reporting layer, all of that's going to go away. And then I think to your second point, Luis, is a place where we provide a lot of value that I keep seeing over and over again is helping IT leaders identify use cases. I think shiny object, hype cycle, everybody's listening to the same podcast, everybody's reading the same articles, everybody wants to quote unquote do AI, but they don't know where to get started. So a lot of times it's like the technology is getting faster, it's changing, it's becoming a commodity almost. It's like, where do we start so that there's not just this giant sprawl of activity? Because the users are going to be doing stuff, the early adopters are going to be doing stuff. And the reality is, for most companies, doing machine learning and forecasting, doing network optimization, doing pricing via AI, there are really rock movers that are going to move EBITDA for them. And then there's a lot of quality of life, cleaning up master data, easier access to policy, like the day-to-day stuff. I call it the soul-sucking work. I'm a big advocate using AI to remove the work that nobody likes to do. And it's like, how do we help companies hone in on those use cases? And that's where companies are going to win.
I had a client recently that they knew that there's a lot of money. They spend a ton of money on repair equipment for all their plants, but every plant has a different item number on it. So we can never solve it because our data isn't there. So let's load it up, because we can probably use AI to match up a lot of these components. Yeah, sure enough, 80% of them matched up pretty quick. And then you could use AI to get past that data barrier to start then using AI to start saying, okay, we have like a year supply of this item in both plants. We should never be buying this again, and we should share it with other plants. And start getting these benefits right away. When they thought there's a barrier in front of them, like I couldn't do this, AI then just conquered that barrier. But that was just one particular use case. They didn't change out of Oracle. They're on Oracle EBS. They didn't have to change, their systems. They could start moving forward and making better decisions and doing better things. Now, there's some areas where they did need to do data work, but that's okay. We know that in the particular area, instead of trying to boil the ocean and fixing all data, which will never happen, They knew the areas that they could actually work on that then fundamentally uncork major value. So you start getting the sprint-based approach versus this long waterfall, it's going to take years approach.
Yeah, one of the things that, I mean, the second part of the question that Teresa asked is when do you get outside help? When do you hire experts?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, you really should be thinking about getting experts to help you build the foundation around governance, security. How are you going to evaluate and prioritize use cases, right, based on business value and those type of activities? The actual building of the agents, the building of apps, that's going directly down the path of having business users be able to do this at scale in a controlled environment with structure and security, things like that. But that's really what's going to come down to, right? The idea that I'm going to have to buy an application to do something or build something in with a developer, that's going to go away, right? Most of the stuff that knowledge workers need will be able to build themselves. What you need is that structure around, well, how do you start this process, right? What's the governance model look like? What's the security model look like? We were just talking before we started this session is that the entire concept of security is basically a new paradigm shift, right? A simple example, like the concept of least privilege, which is a common term in security, which basically says, hey, I only give the user the minimum rights they need to do the work they have to do, right? If someone only is doing dashboarding, I just give them read access. I don't have to give them write access to a database. And that they applied that to agents, and the reality is that wasn't enough. We had to do something called least agency, which means that you not only control what the agent can do, but how often they can do it and when can they do it, because these agents can be running 24 hours, right? So this concept of, hey, how do I apply my current security standard zero trust architecture to a non-person, an AI agent, is really causing this paradigm shift across the board.
Yeah, I don't envy IT leaders right now, right? Not only do they have to keep the day-to-day running, they have to keep all their apps, they have to keep their help desk running, they got to do their security and governance, but the technology is changing and everyone's a software developer right now, whether that's good or bad, but it's true and it's going to keep getting better. And a lot of times when I'm talking to these leaders, it's like, a business person made an app in Base 44, or they made an app in Cursor. I don't know what to do with that, but they want me to have it live next week. And it's like, that's great. I mean, speed of innovation is great. I'm all for it. I like it. It's fun. Yeah. But there has to be a system in place for how we platform these things. And also there has to be a governance cycle and there has to be a maintenance plan. Like we all know that it's not as easy as I whip up an app and all of a sudden my business is going to transform, right? A license or an app is not a transformation. There has to be some strategy and some governance behind it.
Yeah, no, the software development lifecycle needs to be established for the people you want using these tools, right? Yeah. It's not just for developers. If you're going to make citizen developers across your employee base, then they have to follow some rules, right? And the reality is that even though early days and people want innovation and excitement and ideas, at some point, you're going to have to limit the spend. So token usage, all those things that are going to cost you money. You can't just have 1,000 employees writing apps left and right because your token budget is going to be eaten pretty quickly. You have to basically prioritize that. Hey, I want to focus on customer side applications. I want us to focus on quality. And here's our budget for tokens. And here are the 3 or 4 use cases we're going to approve for this month with our token budget. Doesn't mean you can't have a place where people can experiment and sandbox, but the reality is that you have to have a process to evaluate, support, and really manage the life cycle of apps being developed by these user groups.
That's too
funny. So what I think we learned here is one is don't worry about swapping out your ERP. Come up with use cases, start today, but then it will take real work on the enterprise side to build out your infrastructure properly because of security, governance, and other issues. But don't let that start with their small prototypes and learn, but make sure you build the infrastructure on top of your ERP. But just because you happen to be on an older version of Infor doesn't mean you can't start taking advantage of these capabilities.
Thank you so much, Greg, Lewis, Alex, for joining us today. I learned so much every time we get together, and I just had to share it with the audience and with the folks that I know. So AI over ERP workshop coming to a city near you.